Vietnam, and good evening to those who are connecting with us from Canada. Welcome to Runway, where Vietnam meets the world, and we're literally meeting from Vietnam to the world. Today, we have organized a very interesting masterclass in our webinar series. This masterclass will especially benefit those who are aspiring entrepreneurs and have a vision to build a multinational company for their idea, and also those who are already successful entrepreneurs and want to further expand their businesses. In this masterclass, we will share the most basic knowledge about strategies to increase revenue and reduce costs for businesses when they're expanding to international markets. In this masterclass, we have invited someone who has over 20 years of leadership experience, and they have in technology and impacting businesses, and has driven the growth of many companies and has raised more than 30 million in investments and venture capital. Please let us welcome Mr. Keith Ippel. Sorry, Keith, about your name. Mr. Keith Ippel, co-founder and CEO of Spring Activator from Canada. And with Keith, we have an entrepreneur from Vietnam today as well. So we also have Miss Cha Mi, who is the co-founder of the Craft House and Bisu Bisu. The Craft House is a co-selling offline retail chain for arts and crafts brand. The Craft House currently has 8 retail stores and represents more than 70 brands in Vietnam. Bisu Bisu is an omni-channel D2C brand of customizable accessories. In Vietnam, the brand sells more than both online through social media platforms and online store, and offline through 10 consignment locations. Internationally, Bisu Bisu sells through Amazon and Etsy. My name is Sadia, and I am with Foreign Trade University Innovation and Incubation Space, and I welcome both Keith and Chami to this masterclass. Welcome to this masterclass, Keith and Chami. We are very delighted to have you here today, and now the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Sadia.
Hey, Sadia, thanks a lot. And really excited to spend the next hour with everyone. I think we're going to have a great session together. Chami and I first met actually in Vancouver back in the fall, in October, I think it was. And when we first met, it was actually really funny to find out that she was a part of Craft House, because it's my absolute favorite gift store to go to in Hanoi when I'm there. And so thank you again, Chami, for joining us today.
I'm really glad to join today too. Thank you, Keith and Sadia. I'm really glad to have a chance to connect with everyone and to talk with other entrepreneurs in Vietnam too.
Great. So everyone, this session is designed for you. So for those who are on Google Meet, or if you're live on Facebook, your goal is to ask as many questions as you might have about growing revenue, reducing or maintaining costs, and how to kind of navigate growth, especially, in 2020, when there's, kind of a global recession, and there's, some countries are still feeling the effects of COVID. And so this really is an opportunity for you to kind of, learn from Chami and myself. Together we have been a part of 6 businesses, and hopefully we can share that wisdom with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share a presentation, and in sharing that presentation, I'm going to use it as a guide for our conversation today. And let's see if I can make this look good for you. I hope I can. Fantastic. So I've got it presented. Can you guys see this okay? Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Great, fabulous. Okay. So just as a quick intro, again, just really thank the team at FIS, and also Swiss Entrepreneurship Program Vietnam, or Swiss EP Vietnam, for allowing us to be a part of this event today. So thank you again. And then Chami, why don't you give a brief introduction of just your entrepreneur journey and give people some context, then I'll do the same.
Sure. So Sadia actually helped me introduce a lot about my businesses, but I'll just tell you how I started. So at first I was working full-time for an investment firm, and I was getting bored. So I was thinking about what else to do in the sideline. And so I was talking to a lot of friends, and so the idea of doing customizable accessories came along. So things like phone cases, wallets, passport holders, printed with your own name. So that's what I started doing with two of my friends. And so we started Bisu Bisu, and we grew it from a local company selling mainly in Vietnam. Now we try to go abroad too, and we sell in the US and also in Canada via Amazon, via Etsy. And we also have a few corporate customers that they order from us in order for us to produce for them, and they do the selling in Canada.
Mm.
And for the craft house, it's the second business that came along. And that was because when we were trying to go offline with Bisu, we found out that it's a lot of time spent, it's a lot of cost sunk, it's a lot of new inventory that we have to do if you wanted to open a new store. We found out that a lot of other entrepreneurs also have the same problem of currently selling pretty well online, but thinking that there might be a lot of difficulties and cost sunk if they wanted to go offline. So that's why we started the Craft House, which is basically a space where a lot of different brands can come along together and put their inventories in there. And we help them do all the selling and all the going offline, building the store, hiring the staffs. So that's where we are right now.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that introduction. And then for everyone, and sorry, that's a plane going by. I don't know if you can hear that. So my name is Keith, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Spring. And we run an incubator and accelerator based in Vancouver, Canada. And we actually run our incubation acceleration in over 40 communities around the world. We love to really help entrepreneurs to find what we call product market fit and unlock growth. And then as a part of that process, and to give some additional context, this is my fourth business. And so previously had launched a couple of tech startups in the software space, raised about 15 million in financing and funding for those from investors. And then I've helped entrepreneurs to raise about 80 million in addition to that. So just to give you guys a bit of context for who I am. So now that we've got our introductions out of the way, what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how to grow revenue and how to reduce costs. There are time for questions throughout. So put in your questions in Facebook, put them into Google Meets, and Chami and I will do our very best to answer all your questions. And then the team, of course, at FIS can talk about next steps for the program. So we're really excited about that. So without further ado, how to grow revenue, how to grow your business. You know, sometimes this question feels too big. I think sometimes it feels like it can be too complicated, like too many choices. And so one thing that I love to talk about is this term, and the term is the only 4 ways to increase revenue. So it's kind of a really nice, simple way of thinking about how to grow revenue. And those 4 ways are something that Josh Kaufman was able to describe really nicely. So in order to grow revenue, you increase the number of customers, you increase the average transaction size or the average kind of basket size, you increase the frequency of transactions, and you raise prices. So one or more of those choices come into play. And so, you know, Chami, you gave this great introduction of Bisu Bisu. And one of the things you said is we started in Vietnam, now selling in the US and Canada. So was that an intentional decision to say one of the ways to grow our business is geographic expansion? And why did you choose geographic expansion as kind of a primary driver?
So for us, it's true that for us, right now we are still focusing on, as you know, so increase the number of customers by expanding geographically and also using different channels. So as we did when we first started online and then we went offline with Bisu Bisu in Vietnam. After a while, we found out that in the US and in Canada, there is a demand for our kinds of products. So we thought, oh, why don't we try to test it out? So whenever we have an idea, then we try to find the cheapest, fastest way to test it, and which is very available in the US because they have Amazon and they have Etsy, somewhere that you don't really have to understand the selling channel that much. You just have to have a product, and people help you do, you know, the whole storefront, do the selling for you, attract the customers, attract the traffic for you. So that's why we tried it, and it worked out pretty well. So we try to continue uploading more products, testing a bit with what kind of products sell well, the kind of product lines or the kind of designs that would work better in the US versus in Vietnam, because often it's not the same. So I guess for us, we felt like it's like the low-hanging fruits. When in Vietnam, you try to run some ads, you try to reach customers, and the ones who are most excited with you, probably after 2 or 3 years, they are already with you. Then where do you go and find other customers that would be the craziest about you? The people that you can just show them the products and they're like, oh, we're in love. Because after a while in the same market, you don't have those, like all those customers already converted. So you try to go and find different geographical areas where you can do the same, where you can easily find new customers that are excited about your products.
Yeah. You know, I'm really glad that you described that, because I think for everyone on this call, I cannot emphasize enough that the ability to expand geographically is far easier than you expect. I am not saying it is easy, but it is easier than you expect. And the reason for that is because, as Trami explained, you know, other countries have existing distribution channels. They have existing digital marketing channels. All of those tools are set up. And if you know your target customer, say by age demographic or by income level or by marriage status, then you can actually start to kind of test that translation of message and of product into those new markets. It's one of the first things that I learned in business was that in many respects, often growth comes fastest when you move geographically first, as opposed to expanding product line or trying to reach new demographics in an existing geography. So I really appreciate what you were just sharing, Trami, because I do think that that's a good opportunity. And, you know, if we talk through some of the examples, so increasing the number of customers in your domestic market, some of you are probably early enough that you can continue to grow that market. So testing different channels, expanding your target market, which we just talked about. Sometimes it's easier to go geographically than it is to expand the target market. Leverage referrals is really getting your customers who are so passionate about what you're doing to tell all their friends. And Trami, it sounds to me like, at least with Bisou Bisou, I bet you have done the same with Craft House. How do you get people to try and refer?
So for Bisou Bisou, we have a pretty clear campaign. So we often have monthly or bi-monthly campaigns where when people share, then they get either a small voucher of a gift from us, or they get like an additional discount on their order. So that's when they would help us share it on their social platform, or by commenting and tagging friends in there. So that's a really good way of growing for us, because those are the customers that, you know, use our products and they love our products and they want to buy the product, and that's why they're referring. For the Craft House, I think because it's an offline location, it's a lot easier for people to refer, because people buy from our store and they have the bag coming out of the store. So I walk around Ho Chi Minh City and I see in coffee shops and stuff, people are just using the Craft House bag. So that's our main kind of, we just try to make really cool bags and stuff that people can bring around. And people would look at the logo, and when they pass by of the store, then they are like, oh, I see that, I saw that logo somewhere, I'll just go in. So I think the way that we try to do things are a bit different. For the Craft House, for the online kind of referral, then when we first started, we did a lot of the photo booth where people can go and take nice photos, because in Vietnam, people really like to take nice photos and share it on social media. So that was how we first got a lot of customers, because they took a photo, they posted online, and people knew about it.
Yeah. And I think I just want to highlight, as a part of what you just shared, which is, whenever you're doing growth, you always have to test and try more than one thing at a time. Yeah. Right? So in your case, you said, hey, on one level, we can offer discounts, free products, we can do some other things, but at the same time, offering bags that people can take out, and also doing storytelling of, and I'm going to use Craft House as an example, everyone, because there's individual artists and producers in the store. There's an ability for Craft House to do storytelling of those individual brands, which then causes customers like us to then go tell that story which is another form of referral, right? And so always testing multiple methods of referral, I think, are a great way to introduce more customers. So Chami, great examples. I think being a thought leader, and I will give you my opinion, which is if you are selling business to business, being a thought leader is very important in your day-to-day and how you're trying to grow your customer base. In addition to that, I think if you're selling a product in the marketplace to consumers, that requires a high level of trust. And so what I mean by that is, for example, if you're selling anything in medical or health, those would be areas that I would definitely be keen to see you think about thought leadership. Now, average transaction size, and I know you have to be tackling this as well, Chami, but trying to get the average transaction size. And for those people who know e-commerce, there's a term that we use, which is called shopping cart size. So it's how big is that cart size when I check out at the end. What are some of the techniques that you use to grow revenue, when people are kind of filling the cart, whether it's at Craft House, which is offline, or it's Bizu Bizu, which is online?
So for each of the business, I think we try to really understand who our customers are and why they come to our store. So for example, for Bizu Bizu, a lot of the people who come to our stores are there to buy gifts for their family or for their colleagues. So the way we do that is we try to have either bundle discounts, or we offer services that would make it better for them to give gifts. So for example, free gift wrapping sometimes, or sometimes paid gift wrapping. So most of the time it's paid. So that's how we increase the average transaction, because for example, passport holder that they buy, we just gift wrap for them, or we add their name for them, or we change colors for them. So we add in any kinds of services that we think customers who are buying gifts would want. So sometimes they want the direct shipping to their customers. Sometimes they want the gift to be gift wrapped. Sometimes they want to add like a gift card. Sometimes they want to add names. Sometimes they want to have like a kind of consultant to help them pick different products. So we just try to understand who they are, and then we add the kinds of services or products that would help them make their experience with us better. And for the Craft House, we do the same thing. So when people come in there, a lot of them are tourists. Then what else can you sell to tourists? Then we try to select the kind of products that are easy for tourists to, when they're waiting at the checkout area, it's the little stuffs, the little souvenir things that they are like, oh, that's quite cute. Okay, let's just pick one more thing up. So when you come, you're thinking of buying this thing. And then when you leave, you have this thing, and then you have like 5 other little things. I'm sorry, Keith.
And I have lived that in your store in Vietnam for sure. And yeah, store layout is so important. But I do want to highlight something for everybody, which is if you want people to spend more money with you, you need to understand why they are buying from you in the first place. Right. So Chami, Bizu Bizu, I'm buying gifts for others. So you need to help them understand how you have a bigger assortment of gifts for more of the people in their lives. In the case of Craft House, as a tourist, you're making me think about my daughter, my wife, my family, right? Like my friends, my team, right? Like, so that's the goal is always start by understanding why. And if you can start by understanding why, then you can get into the how do I fill it, because you're just responding to the why. And so I think that's a great example. And so just to cover off a few other things, I do want to touch on increasing average transaction size. And I'm going to use this as an example because I think this example is actually universal. I don't care where you are in the world. It happens to be a restaurant chain. So they have many locations. And so what happened is when COVID hit and there was a lockdown, what they started to do was they said, okay, you can pick up food for delivery, but then you can also order groceries from us, and we'll even give you meal plans. So in other words, the meal plans are pre-measured ingredients with the instructions on how to make the meal, right? So you're really busy, they send you the meal plan, everything's pre-portioned, and you just follow the instructions, 6 steps, make an amazing meal, right? And so, but the smart part that process of increasing average transaction size, because now that the lockdown is lifted, they're still doing all of this. And the reason is because they actually understood the why. Because people were not going to that restaurant for food. They were going to that restaurant because they trusted that restaurant to know what dishes would taste amazing. So people trusted them with the quality, and people trusted them with the variety. And so then once they knew the trust equation, then they could say, well, I can give you groceries, but we choose. Or I can give you meal plan because we choose. Or you can sit in my restaurant and I'll give you a menu. We choose, right? So it's a really good example of kind of like focusing in on the why. And so, you know, IKEA is an interesting example, by the way. And I could quiz you and ask you why IKEA, which is a very famous, of course, global furniture company, why they have restaurants inside their stores. And the reason is because they have done studies that show that the longer you spend time in their store, the more money you will spend. And so if you stop for food, that will cause you to spend another 15 to 30 minutes in their store. And they find a 15 to 30% increase in average transaction size as a result. And so it's a really, really interesting example where you don't think about that, but this is a restaurant inside a furniture store. And that's how they get people to purchase. So increasing frequency of transaction. One great way, of course, is recurring revenue. You want to build a habit. There is an e-commerce company that I know, which is called Amoda Tea. And so they sell tea online. And the why behind their customers was customers wanted to discover new teas, different flavors, different varieties. And so what they started was a monthly subscription box. So, but you had no idea what you were going to get, right? So the box would show up and you would open it up and there would be 6 different teas. And that's how you discovered new teas. And so that's actually how they were able to unlock growth, is they understood the why behind the customer. And then they built an e-commerce model, which was recurring in order to leverage that. So it's a good example of how businesses kind of can do that, and investing in that kind of relationship by building that recurring revenue. Another funny example for those who use a photocopier is HP. And if you look at the numbers, in 1992, they would charge $2,200 for a printer. Same printer in 2018, $210. But the toner cartridge at $70, that's actually where they make all their margin and all their profit is in the toner. So what they did is they kind of made the toner cartridges smaller, and it requires faster turnover of the toner cartridges. And so that's actually how they hook you. So they're actually creating a repeat and a loyal customer base. Once you have the printer, then you got to buy toner. And so it's a really good example of creating a repeat purchase mindset. And another example of that would be if you buy a car. Most car companies do not make any money at all when you buy the car. They make money on the service, right? Oil change, tires, right? But you have to keep coming back for that. So that's how they increase their transaction size over time, is you keep coming back for that service. So it's another really, really interesting example. One thing I do want to touch on, and Chami, I'm curious from your perspective and what you've experienced so far, and if you have, but I think it's very easy and understandable for us as entrepreneurs to try and go to lower price. The challenge is that consumers never think about price as just price. They actually think about price value. So if I'm not getting a lot of value, I will want to pay less. If I'm getting a lot of value, I might be willing to pay more. And so, Chami, as you have been growing both businesses, have you guys talked about that kind of equation, right? Price and value. And do you charge more for certain things, but then other things maybe are cheaper? So kind of curious of your take on that.
So I think for us, because we are still small brands, and I guess for us, the pricing value, we care about two things mainly. So first of all, the strength of our brand. So how good our storytelling is, that's how we create the value. But the customers perceive the value, I think, based on two different things. So firstly, how they perceive our brands, and also based on the competition. So for the customer, they are looking at the craft house, or they're looking at these two, and they're like, oh, okay, great brand, great storytelling, okay, the service. And then they also compare it with other competitors. So for each of the product line, it really depends on, we have to strike a balance, I guess, for where our brand is and our current value is, but also seeing how the competition is, and seeing, for example, for a product like passport holders, for us, we have a higher product margin for that one, because we don't have a lot of competitors doing the same thing.
Right.
And it's the same brand, right? But for another product, for example, a power bank, for us, we have a lower profit margin for that, but we still sell it because people come to us to buy that, and maybe we can convert them into like a repeating customer.
Right.
But we have to price the product to be lower price because of all the competition going around. So I guess we have to strike a balance to see where our brand is, but also seeing for each product line where the competition is. So that's how we're currently thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it depends on each product lines. Yeah.
Yeah, I think looking at competition is an important dimension to deciding what you will do around price and value. And to your point, the more you build your brands, the more protected you are from having to reduce prices. Because people just trust your brand, and they're paying for that brand. And Nike, of course, is probably one of the first companies to really fully embrace the value of brand. I think Apple is another really good example. I think if we all looked at the technical specs of our Apple phones, we would know that they're not the best by technology, but by brand. It's the second most valuable brand in the world, or the most valuable brand in the world right now by value. And so I think those are good examples of just the importance of doing that. Now, for everyone on this call, I do want to say that you really have to count on at least 5 years to meaningfully build a brand. Like, it just takes time. You can't build a brand in a year. Any tips and tricks, Chami, on building a brand from your perspective?
I think for us, it's just about, so firstly, doing really good service. So you have to make your customers love you. The ones that come to you, they have to love you. You can grow a bit slower. You can have a small number of customers, but I think it's very important that those customers love you. So we don't want to grow crazily fast and neglect on the customers that are actually first coming to us. So for us, that's the way we grow. We just try to stay very close to the customers, understand them, and seeing how else we can serve them. So that's how we also make new product line decision, or as you see, how we can increase the transaction value. It's when we really understand what our customers want and seeing how we can best serve them, what kind of services, what kind of products. So for us, it's mainly just understanding the customers and building it like that.
And I think leveraging storytelling, so making them love us, but making them tell it to others, I think is really important. And then I think the other one is to be early in your work online, is to build consistent messaging. What is your brand value? And keep reinforcing that brand value so that people know what it is that you're looking for. So I think those are great examples. And then one thing that I do want to share about growth is that you need to make sure that you're driving to break even and profitability as quickly as you can. And so the picture that I'm showing is Daryl. Daryl runs Traveler Collective, which is an online e-commerce and social network for travelers, young travelers specifically. His primary product is a keychain. His keychain is average price $68 US.
That's amazing.
And he sells $350,000 a month in keychains. So he sells $4 million in keychains a year. Average price $68. But the reason is because he understands the why. He's been building his brand. To your point, loving the customer and staying close. They did research, and all of us can do this. When they were doing their e-commerce research, they found out that 80% of the people buying the keychain were women. But they're like, well, women don't usually buy keychains. So they actually got on the phone. They started calling their customers, and they're like, hey, you must be buying a keychain for your boyfriend or for your husband or your dad, and they're like, no, I'm buying it for me because it's the only thing you offer, but it's what I want. And so they're like, well, do you want it in another form? And they said, well, actually, I'd love to get a chain. And so what they did is they added a chain option. Instead of just buying a keychain, you could buy a chain. And their sales doubled in 3 months because they were just talking to the customer and listening to the customer. So I think, Trami, like your advice is really solid. And Traveler Collective is a really good example of staying true to the brand, knowing the value based on the why people were buying from them. And then the last piece is talking to the customer a lot to know what it is that they're looking for. So I think we want to get more people to buy more frequently at an optimal price. We want them to be creative. We need to be creative and test to maximize, right? Test different options, different bundles. And then we want to kind of identify and fix those revenue problems. And like Daryl, finding different products to help satisfy those needs. And so this actually gives us an opportunity to open things up for questions. And so these questions can come from anybody on Google Meets or on Facebook Live. Sadia, you may also have some questions for us. So, happy to take any and all questions at the moment. And then we can also talk about costs after this.
Right. I actually have a lot of questions, right? So like a lot questions. But before we move on to questions, I would like to talk a little bit about what FIS currently is trying to do, because one of the things that I took away the most is that how much this information means to us and to the businesses that we are trying to get on board with us in the Runway program. So Keith, if you allow me, I would like to speak a little bit about Runway and what we are trying to achieve in Vietnam. And then, because I have a couple of questions that kind of go hand in hand with them. So maybe I can ask a couple of questions, because it also will help if any business is listening to this call right now, it would really help them. And eventually, if we put this recording up, then they would also get understanding, right? So I would like to now share my screen, talk a little bit about the Runway program, and then I would ask you a couple of questions. On the other hand, if people have questions, please put them up in chat, or you can make a comment on Facebook, and then we can try and answer most of them, right?
Great.
Okay, so I'm gonna so let me just share my screen. So as I was saying that, just give me a minute. I'm trying to figure out. Where is my presenter view gone? All right. So as I said, Runway is a global I just want to say again that, so Runway, I said that it's bring Vietnam to the world, right? So the reason why we are doing Runway now is because we understand that the world is constantly changing and expanding. And, Vietnam startup ecosystem is booming. And so we see that although Vietnam has a good startup ecosystem, however, businesses these days are not, they don't have a scale for vision, or they're not scaling up to new markets. And one of the things that we started to do as we were doing this program is we were trying to do a lot of research about what the really problem is. And we also kind of found out that there's also no research about why businesses aren't scaling up to new markets or not going international. And we also realized that, so there's also no information about what the businesses need when they want to expand to global markets, right? Hence, we have Runway. Runway actually provides businesses access to foreign markets. We also provide them with knowledge and skills that will help them prepare a go-to-market strategy plan and penetrate the international markets. And we also kind of support them through our mentors and coaches, so that when they are expanding, whatever roadblocks they face in their businesses locally and while trying to expand, they can get all the support from the Foreign Trade University Network, from the FIS network, as well as from the expert mentors and coaches. So in short, Runway is a unique accelerator for growth stage businesses who want to expand to global market through our, as in Foreign Trade University and Foreign Trade University Innovation Incubation Space networks and partners, right? Our core values are connection, practical, and supportive, because we believe that we are going to create a space where people feel connected to one another in the ecosystem. We have a very practical approach where we do we have the learn by doing approach. So we do a lot of customer research, advanced market research. We make a plan together, we raise funds together, and then we jump and penetrate the market together. And lastly, which all binds it together, is supportive. So throughout the entire 1.5 year of the program, businesses get every kind of support that they need in terms of knowledge, skills, finances, every kind of support that they need. So today, mostly, the purpose of this meeting or the masterclass is that we would like to talk about businesses and who is this business that we are looking for. So anyone who wants to join us as a business, so for eligibility, and this is where also one of the questions I'll ask, right? So for us, one of the eligibility criteria we have decided is that businesses who are running in Vietnam for at least 3 to 5 years, they already have a local product market fit and also have a good amount of market share in Vietnam. They have a fully functional operational team in the local market. They have the financial capacity, and we are actually right now looking at all kinds of businesses. So the sector doesn't matter, it can be a software, product, or service. Anybody who already have a successful business in Vietnam and would like to now expand to a new market. And as you already talked about geographical expansion, those businesses, if they have a geographical expansion as their vision for scale, then this is a good program for them to be part in. So what are the benefits of this program, right? So this program has a couple of benefits. So for example, we help them connect with foreign markets. FTU has a lot of connection with trade promotion agencies. We have a huge network of investors, incubators, accelerators, and our partner network is fully equipped to support these businesses. We give them 6 months of intensive support where we help them with the market research. We help them with preparing their market plan, their go-to-market strategy plan. We help them with raising investment for this new expansion. We also have some other kind of support structure in place right now. For example, we are going to give them some sort of web services from Amazon Web Service, Google. We're talking to other partners if we can get more support from them as well. Our expert team would help them with marketing, PR, and communication. As I already mentioned, the most important thing, and this also brings me back, I cannot emphasize how much probably market research is important for geographical expansion, because when I heard Chami talk about Bisu Bisu and the craft house, it looked like that the research really helped her understand that there is a potential new market for her to expand to. So we are also kind of thinking that businesses probably would need a lot of I think encouragement and also a lot of support in terms of validating their product market fit in the new market. So we are going to help with that. We're also going to support them with intellectual property. And obviously, we have a couple of cost support package for businesses, such as co-working space, legal, HR, other kind of support. One of the things that businesses might need when they expand is probably some language support. So like English, Chinese skills. We are also going to help like Vietnamese businesses with that. So for our application, because we're looking at growth stage businesses, and this is also not an accelerator for businesses to kind of come with an idea, develop a minimum viable product. So our selection process is a little bit more rigorous than what we could have. So for example, initially we're going to start with a very basic program registration form. And when we get some basic information about the business, we'll get in touch with them. So after the online registration, we kind of want to have more interaction with the business to kind of understand how the business is in Vietnam and how can we support them to expand to the global market. And so we do a virtual interview. We kind of ask for a couple of documents so that we can understand that this business is running successfully in Vietnam. Because one of the goal is that to make sure that when a business goes global, their local business is not impacted, which I understand from also Bisu Bisu and the craft house that they have. So I mean, from Bisu Bisu, that the business is running well in Vietnam, and they are going to also successfully in US and Canada. So so final interview, and then they join our business. So with that, I actually just want to kind of leave it here, and I want to say that if there are any businesses who are listening to this masterclass, and if anybody is interested, our contact information is on the screen. So if you want, you can reach out to us. Alternatively, when this recording will go up, you can also send us a message on Facebook. So with that, I want to conclude my sharing of Runway. And now I think that because we only have like 16 minutes of the call, so it would be probably a good idea that now we open up like the floor for questions, right? So let me just like quickly stop my presentation. And so now let's see if we can get some questions. So if there are any questions in the chat, then we can take them. Other than that, then I can actually probably start asking a few questions.
Yeah, it'd be great if you asked a couple questions from your end, maybe to get things started. That'd be great. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah.
So as I was saying that in Runway, we were positioning ourselves as a program that helps businesses get through like a new market. And the term that you use that I've never used before, I'll use it from now on, is geographical expansion, right? So there are four only ways that you said is to grow revenue, right? But when businesses are entering new markets, would you say that they should focus on probably only one way to grow, which is like just target the new customers? Or do you think that they can also try a couple of other things? Because you also mentioned that when you're trying to grow, you should also test multiple things. So I guess my question essentially is that should businesses, when they're trying to grow, should they try all of these four ways, or should they just focus on one particular way, which is probably like right now for global expansion, let's just try to find the customers. Let's forget about everything else. Like that will come later. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'll give my opinion, and then Chami definitely do the same. Sure. What I find is that when you are doing your market research, which includes a few different elements, right? You're looking at research reports, you're doing interviews, you're testing marketing messaging. You have to be open-minded. You have to be open to all options while doing research. So you want to test, what products or services are interesting, confirming the target market, who is the right target market, and then of course, how to get the product to them. Is it, e-commerce, direct selling? Is it something else, right? And so in the market research and in that testing phase, you want to be open-minded about everything. But when you come to actually launching, you want to pick the combination that has the highest probability for success early. So open-minded in research, focused in launch, and then give yourself, especially in a new market, like you have to give yourself at least 3 to 6 months to get enough data to know what the market is telling you. Sometimes early, you find out you're wrong, but more often than not, it takes a little bit of time. So that would be my opinion, and definitely the way that I've grown some businesses in the past. But Chami, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, definitely the first research is very important. When you do the research, you try to understand firstly who would be your target customers for the current product lines that you are, I guess, most that you are best about. And you look for the kind of target customers that you will have to target. So after a bunch of research and understanding, okay, I'm going to try to push this product to these kinds of customers, then you try and launch. And when you launch, that's when you mainly focus on getting customers, because if you don't have customers, then you can't increase your basket size, you can't increase repeat, you can't do anything. Firstly, you find your first customers. And while you're doing that, then you test a lot of different things. For example, you have a hypothesis from your research that maybe this product line and this customer target is the good one. But once you launch, then you're like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. And then you keep testing with a new few hypotheses until it works. And when it works, when you already understand who your real target customer are, your audience, then you can try to find other ways to like, oh, how do I make them return? How do I understand what they want so that I can offer more services or products that would go and that they would want to buy more. So I think at first you have to understand who you're targeting, test all of your hypotheses, and once you get your first customers, then you try to do more things.
Yeah, and I like that answer, because what you are doing is, and I hope everyone hears that, when you move into a new market, you do not go into that market just with plan A. You say, I have plan A, I have plan B, I have plan C. And, yeah, a lot of times we're wrong on that first one. And so we need to be ready to move quickly. And I would say, actually, that is probably one of the biggest characteristics of a successful entrepreneur, is the ability to adapt quickly from plan A to plan B to plan C until you get to that right plan, which is a mix of right customer, right product, right price, right channel, right? So yeah, great question. Thanks, Sadia.
Right. We have a question from Ms. Kang Wen Tai, and they are asking that they want to know about the legal difficulties when they want to sell local products to global markets such as Amazon. So if I think maybe Chami can answer a little bit about that. And then I actually have a follow-up question on that. I was thinking in my head, but yeah, so Chami, if you can answer that question, that would be great.
So for legally, I think I didn't have to do a lot. So basically for Amazon, you just set up your shop on Amazon, and then you ship, like they have all the instructions that you follow in order to ship your stuffs over onto like a inventory store here. So like an FBA kind of where you can put your inventory with Amazon basically. So they give you all the instructions, and you do it just like you do any other wholesale order to the US or to Canada. So you just do like you either use FedEx or you use any kind of shipping companies that you want. But basically there are all instructions to do that. I didn't run into any legal problems, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add one important distinction, which is if you are selling a food product, things will get more complicated. But remember that Amazon, Etsy, and some of the really large platforms out there, they have been working with global companies for years. They actually not only have the process, but they also have the tools that you can use. So do not anticipate legal to be the challenge. What I would say, and Chami, maybe you can comment on this, is there is something very important, maybe two things to know about Amazon. One is that Amazon does not tell you how their algorithms work. So sometimes you can, like, sales go up, sales go down, you don't know why. And another is that if on Amazon you sell out of product, so if you are out of stock, if that happens for too long a period of time, they will actually blacklist you or remove you from Amazon for a minimum of 6 months, which is very painful. So one thing to know always with Amazon, if you're going to go on Amazon, make sure you can handle the inventory, because if you stock out, you have a problem. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Sadia. That was a great question. Appreciate ask. So yeah, good.
Yeah, so my question actually wasn't legal really, but it was more like general, right? So I wanted to kind of know from Chami, with her personal experiences, that so you started your business in Vietnam, and then you kind of understood that, okay, there is a like demand of these kind of products in like another market, right? And then when you were actually scaling up, like what kind of challenges did you really face? Like what were the challenges? Because I think often people are scared when they are anticipating these challenges, right? So can you share a little bit about that journey as well?
So for us, so growing it, of course, it's hard to find new customers and all, but let's not talk about the revenue part, because we already know, okay, those are the difficulties of growing the revenue. But one problem with us when we grow pretty quickly is that we didn't control our costs very well. So for example, we're like, oh, we need inventory here, inventory there, especially when we start doing a lot of commissioning to like the offline stores and also to FBA and that. If you don't control your cash flow well, you end up with a bunch of cash stuck in inventory and you're like, what do I do? So small things like that never happen when you're small, because you're like, when you're small, you don't need to worry about many things. But once you grow pretty quickly, then you have to learn how to control your cash flow. Otherwise, sometimes you end up with like a very scary few months when you're like, okay, I have cash, but it's stuck everywhere. You don't have cash to do anything that you wanted to do.
Right. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna add a couple things. One is that, Chami, you made this comment. You were like, "Hey, listen, we expand, and so there's sales, and then there's inventory, and there's cash flow, right?"
Yeah,
so what you're doing is you're saying, "Look, if I'm going to grow, I need to look at all parts of my business equally. If I'm going to grow, I need to worry about production and inventory. I also need to worry about finances. I need to worry about team." So, but the other thing to remember, everyone, is I don't care what your business is, at least 6 entrepreneurs have gone before you, right? So before Chami did what she did, there were other entrepreneurs from Vietnam who tried to go on Amazon or eBay or Etsy, whatever, it doesn't matter. And so the point is that someone has gone before you. And so there's 2 pieces of advice I would give. If it is true that you have to look at all aspects of your business, and if it is true at least 6 have gone before you, then my advice is the following. First, every time you have a question like, how do I grow revenue? 3 questions that exist in entrepreneurship, and only 3. How do I? What if? Now what? Right? So what Chami was saying was, well, how do I grow revenue? How do I manage inventory? How do I manage cash flow? Those are how do I questions. So first piece of advice is categorize your questions under how do I, what if, and now what. And then the second thing is connect to a network of those 6 people who have gone before you. So interestingly enough, 10 minutes ago, Sadia was talking about her program. My comment to you is that is the most efficient way to get those answers, because you join one program, but they have mentors and they have guest speakers like us. And then, they have investors. Your goal is to have all your questions listed. And when you come into the program, you hand that list to Sadia and you say, Sadia, get me answers to all these questions. Right. And then that way you speed up the learning, because the challenge is not that there's no answer. The challenge is that you can't get to the answer fast enough. So what you need to do is get those questions out and get asking, because the faster you get the answer, the faster you can adapt, get to plan B, plan C, and then thrive, right? So, yeah.
Thank you, Keith. Your words are so encouraging. I feel like, yes, like we have a great program and yeah, we're going to do it. So we're running out of time, right? I had so many more questions. Maybe I'll send them to you. Maybe you can answer them for us. There's one more question, but we also don't have time to take that question as of now. But before we move, I want to share a type form with everyone. Everyone who's in this call, please Okay, yeah. So just please share, like I've shared this type form, give your feedback for this webinar. It will help us make this webinar even better, because we'll have Keith again in 2 weeks, and then we have another one with the new business coming. So we have a series of webinars where we want to actually bring experts and mentors and coaches before we even start with businesses. So yeah, so Keith, thank you so much for giving us such valuable insights. I mean, I think that even when people don't sometimes think about growing their businesses beyond their own country or a certain region, having you and Chami, especially Chami being from Vietnam, I'm pretty sure gives all these Vietnamese businesses like severe encouragement, right? Especially Chami, you can be one of those who have gone before them. Yes. And I feel like you should probably be a mentor in our program. I don't know why Chin has not introduced us to you. Yeah, I mean, probably I'll write to you about this as well, right? Because if you're in this webinar and then if you're part of this program as well, I'm pretty sure you have so much value to add to our program, right? And this is like amazing. I mean, I really enjoyed hearing your story. It was really inspiring, and I'm really pretty sure that if there are businesses who are hearing this masterclass/webinar today, they are probably learning a lot as well. And so Keith, do you have any last words before we wrap up this session? And Chami, you too.
My encouragement is that it takes a village to launch a business. It takes a village to grow a business. If you take one thing away from this, is that you're not alone and you just want to start asking questions. So I put my LinkedIn, and as Sadia said, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Would love to continue to support you on your journey. Outstanding opportunity for you to connect with people. Thank you, Sadia. Thank you, Fis. Also, thank you to Swiss EP for helping to make this happen. And so, yeah, looking forward to the next one in 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, today I think I learned a lot from Keith too. I also think for entrepreneurs in Vietnam, most of the time we have great products. And actually right now, when you want to go to a new market, you don't have to do it all by yourself. You don't have to do all the steps. You know, when you first start, you don't have to do the marketing, for example. You go on a marketplace. So for example, for me, it's ready-made goods. Like I have physical goods, so I go on Amazon and Etsy. But I'm sure even for softwares and stuff, there are forums and places where you can discuss with people and kind of share your idea and asking for people's feedback. So you don't have to do everything at once. We start with Amazon and Etsy, and after a while, we would want to do our own website, create like a new brand of ourselves, kind of like what we did in Vietnam. But we can start at small steps at a time. Shipping and stuff are very simple now too. Like there are a lot of different companies to do that. So you do whatever you can, and then you move to the next step when you feel like, okay, there's something going on here. I'll go and find more. So you don't have to know the whole big picture before you start doing like legal or other stuff. Just start doing, and then when problems get thrown at you, then you ask your mentors, you ask Sadia, you ask Keith, and then yeah, we're all there to help. Thank you so much, Sadia and Keith.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. And with this, my last word of like request would be, please, everyone who's in this call, if you take like 2 minutes to kind of fill out the feedback, it would really help us make our next webinar/masterclass even better. So yeah, with all of that, I would like to close off this webinar. Yes, it was a delight to have you both, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Keith in a masterclass and Chami as a mentor, okay? All right,
goodbye.
Thank you. Yes,
everybody.
Goodbye. Take care.
Thanks for joining me, everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Yes.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.